Perfect. Hello, everybody, and welcome to stream. Today, I'm sitting down for an interview with Adam Green. We're going to be talking about the Abrahamic. Green. We're going to be talking about the Abrahamic. Green. We're going to be talking about the. All right. Always audio issues with me, man. I'm here with Adam Green. We're going to be talking about the Abrahamic paradigm of control, the Moshiach narrative as well, and kind of give a little insight on sort of how Adam got into everything. But thank you so much for joining me, and I appreciate you giving me your time and rescheduling. I got sick a little earlier this week, so appreciate the flexibility there, man. And you know, I've seen a lot that, you know, at least from my perspective, I made a post the other day, and I was like, it kind of seems like the United States, Israel, and Iran are working together, and people aren't ready to hear that. And you seem to be one of the few voices out there that I've seen that actually agrees with that sentiment. And I've learned a lot from your streams and various clips and stuff of you reviewing rabbi after rabbi, you know, saying the same thing. So I really appreciate you taking the time to sit down with me.
Yeah, it's been good to know you. You're a good follow as well. I remember that tweet that tweet you said about how they're like all following a prophecy agenda went crazy viral. I think it got like several thousands of likes. So that was good to see that people are getting it. And I had a good time when you came on my show recently, and I'm happy to be here.
Awesome, man. Awesome. Well, I guess I'll start with how did you get started in all of this? Was it something like very young, or did you have like an awakening moment, or?
Well, I was raised Christian in a religious family. So I grew up in church and never really believed it. But as soon as the internet came around, I was watching like Richard Dawkins and Christopher Hitchens and like the new atheist movement, even Matt Dillahunty and Atheist Experience. And then, so that was kind of my like fully deconversion, learning about that sort of thing. And then I discovered like the conspiracy world on YouTube, like Alex Jones and David Icke, even learning about stuff. And so that opened up another rabbit hole. And then very quickly, once you're learning about conspiracies, you hear about Zionism and Jews and stuff and New World, Zionist New World Order, globalist New World Orders. And then that opened up that rabbit hole. And I just, been interested in, I started a channel and started putting out content and started reading books on Judaism and Christianity and those sorts of topics. And I've been doing No More News for over 10 years now. And I do news, religion, and politics streams and interviews, debates, presentations, a lot of compilations, rabbi compilations, Christian compilations. And I see it as the biggest conspiracy. There's hundreds, if not thousands, of like internet, YouTube conspiracy theory channels. Everybody loves conspiracies, but I think the greatest conspiracy is the one that's hiding in plain sight and is ubiquitous, and most people don't even get. They think that's the answer to the conspiracies is to believe in Jesus and to stop the Satanists and the Luciferians and stuff, but the conspiracy is like on everybody's bookshelf, and the churches and mosques and synagogues are on like, the center of every city and town. And that is the big conspiracy. That is the one world government, one world religion. The ultimate objective of Torah, Yahweh, Moshiach, which is just Messiah, Judaism, is the whole world to worship the God of the Bible.
Yeah.
And that's been the conspiracy, open conspiracy, hiding in plain sight. And everybody wants to call everything a conspiracy, flat earth, you name it, but they don't want to question that for the most part. And that's the biggest mind control. I read this in a David Icke book, like one of his first ones, like over 10 years ago. Religion, the three Abrahamic religions, are the greatest form of mind control in the world. Half the planet believes, through Christianity and Islam, believes in Jesus, which is a Jewish myth invented by Jews with the purpose. The whole objective of their Messiah is all the world is every knee will bow, as the Christians love to say all the time, to the God of Israel through the Moshiach.
Yeah.
And, that's what I'm writing a book on that now. I've done tons of streams and playlists about that. And that's the focus. And there's a whole lot of material, especially given with Trump and the evangelicals and all of the Christian anti-Semitism exploding right now. It's a huge topic, tons of material there.
Yeah, it's honestly kind of crazy to see because I've seen it seems like every week there is somebody that you're having to like fight against to like dispel things that they'll just paraphrase shit from the Bible all the time, and you're like, no, let's go look at the scripture, let's see what it actually says, and let's see a rabbi talk about how they love that you believe this thing. And there's probably a million examples. I know there's like a fan channel of yours on YouTube that I'm assuming
Yep.
isn't run by you.
No.
And
All my YouTube channels got banned. I've had over 5 channels banned, even ones that were like not named Adam Green or No More News. They were anonymous. That still got banned. And
crazy.
my biggest one, No More News, in 2020, I had 135,000 subscribers, and that was banned in like a huge ban wave right before that Trump was going for re-election.
Jeez. Yeah, I know. And it's crazy too because like I mean, do primarily focus on like dispelling the Abrahamic myth,
Mhm.
and so I'm wondering like what it could have possibly been that they were so afraid of having you on. Like I understand the whole like vaccine thing, right?
Mhm.
And if you give the benefit of the doubt to the religion, it's like, well, then why are they also trying to silence this guy? So kind of weird to me that they'd banned so many of your channels. Um, I mean, it's not. I do understand, but
Mhm.
it's difficult. It's hard for me to grasp why people can't see that as a pattern for like other
Yeah.
truthers.
While all the Christian stuff is boosted and goes crazy viral
Yeah,
on every single platform, and you sign on to your smart TV and there's endless content about Jesus and Christianity,
yeah,
and you check out at the grocery store and there's magazines with Jesus on the cover,
yeah,
and then these Christians online go, there's nothing the Jews hate more than us believing their Bible and bowing down to their Messiah and believing that they were once chosen by God, and they're delusional. That's the whole ultimate goal. And then me and my friends will find all these rabbi clips of the rabbis celebrating Christianity and Islam, turning the world from their pagan idol worship, as they call it, to the monotheistic God of the Bible. And they say this fulfills their prophecy and this is the ultimate plan. And they're all proto Noahides now, Noahide religions. And then the Christian cope online will be, you believe the rabbis. That's what they'll say.
yeah.
Christians that believe the Torah, worship the God of Israel, believe all of the original Jews that claim Jesus was born of a virgin and resurrected from the dead. They believe all that, but then they claim, I believe the rabbis, when I just show them bragging and laughing about all the world worshiping the King of the Jews.
Yeah. Yeah, it's honestly like I can see how it almost feels like they found a way to do that like false savior thing they do with government,
Mhm.
but as an extension of someone's own ego, because that's what I've always kind of seen religion as is, oh, it just so happens that your God, you know, values and believes all the things that you specifically do and that you're okay with based on your life and circumstance. um, Really quickly, from everything that I've sort of researched, and I'm like uh, the furthest thing from a theologian, all three of the Abrahamic religions seem to have like the same main rules and guidelines. And I know these are often referred to as like the Noahide laws.
Mhm.
Can you sort of give like a rough outline to my audience, like what these are and how they've influenced laws here in America and other like Anglo-Saxon countries?
Sure. Yeah. Well, the Noahide laws are basically about the same as the Ten Commandments. And so Christianity, follows the Ten Commandments, and Islam is just like a repackaging of the Old Testament. And they still believe in all the same prophets, just with slight little variations. And they think that Ishmael, they have the birthright. So Christians and Muslims are all fighting over who has the birthright and who are the true chosen people. But they all have end times prophecies too. Christianity and Islam are both forms of apocalyptic, meaning like end times prophecy, messianic. They believe in a messianic figure. Judaism, they're spin-offs of Judaism, they're antithesis of Judaism. And they all have end times prophecies that like align and converge where they're they're dependent on Judaism's prophecies being fulfilled first. So Christians believe that before Jesus returns, the second coming of Jesus, that there has to be an antichrist and a third temple and a mark of the beast, which is just like worldwide control from Israel, basically, which they're working towards with tech dominance, in the last few decades. And so, even in Islam, they believe that Jesus is going to return to conquer the Antichrist. Same thing in Islam. So they're all working together. And there's a really cool term that was coined called hyperstition, where just the fact that people believe in something, believe in a myth, it can make it happen in the real world. It has a way of like self-fulfilling and manifesting it. And then when we see the situation right now with this messianic-like figure, Trump, leading Western civilization, which they view as Edom, their archenemy in the Bible, and we're on the verge of wars with Iran and Russia versus the West, like that is the Gog and Magog plan. You can go on YouTube and just search Gog and Magog and find endless videos of rabbis saying this explicitly. And it's not a after the fact thing that they're coming up with to try to say their prophecy is being fulfilled. They've been saying this for hundreds of years. These countries, this war, and they believe it has to happen. The Christians believe it has to happen. They're all waiting for the chaos and the birth pains before the messianic era. And now they're all saying it's a new era with Trump, a new era of peace, the new Middle East. And so I've been on the Trump, exposing Trump as a Zionist and a messianic antichrist type figure since he first got into office, like 2016, 2017. I wasn't the first one to think of it. There's Christians on YouTube that were pointing out these, connections with Trump. And then I've been on it ever since then. I was able to predict with one of my friends on a show 2 years before Trump's assassination attempt, because they're just following the script. So that, and just to be clear, I don't believe in prophecies. That is the mind control, is believing that there's the God of the Bible is real, and there's really a chosen people, a nation of priests, and they have the power of prophecy. Believing in their prophecies is why they have so much power. Like that is the secret key to their influence. So I don't believe the prophecies are real. God's not playing these things out. They're following like a script and a blueprint, just like the movie Dune. Did you see the new Dune Part 2?
I haven't seen it. No.
Okay. That is the plot, that this like secret religious society plants these messianic prophecies on different planets, and then they breed and groom the messianic saviors, and then provide them with a savior. And it's just like this form of like religious predictive programming, mind control.
Yeah.
That's what we're seeing right now with Trump, like to the T. So they're playing in his ego. I don't think he completely knows this, but he knows they see him as like, he's the most famous person in the world, also the most hated person in the world. So I predicted the assassination attempt because the Antichrist in the Bible survives a head wound, a deadly head wound, right? So there was that. And then it was obvious that nobody else had a better chance. Once he lost in 2020, I thought he was going to win because he didn't do the war with Iran and they weren't done with him and he was their guy. But I had been predicting all along that he would be back for a second term, the resurrection, the second coming of Trump, right? And that he would come in under tons of persecution, and then he would be sold as the savior. He's going to save us from World War III. He's going to come in and bring more Abraham Accords, more peace to the Middle East. I've been predicting still, and they're just in the news again. They're talking about a two-state solution, that there's going to be a covenant of the many, like the Antichrist is supposed to do. It's supposed to last for 3.5 years, and then it falls apart, and then the end times wars happen where the East and the West destroy each other, and then Israel rises up and then has their messianic age with complete control. So if they have their way, that's where I see things going, following the prophecy script. And then all the Christians think it's God's plan. When Trump had the assassination attempt, they said he was saved by God to save the world. And Trump even regurgitated that. And then now they say, he's saving us from World War III, and he's saving Christianity, he's saving Israel. If you thought he got a lot of awards from the top Jewish organizations in the past and bragged about being the greatest president of Israel, just wait till the next few years. It's going to be way overboard.
Oh, yeah. Like a lot of people don't realize everything that's happened. We're like, what is it, 1/8 of the way through his presidency right now?
Oh, well, it depends. He keeps teasing the idea that he's going to run in 2028 and be a dictator forever and stuff.
Yeah.
In fact, there was another clip of him just today. Somebody in the crowd said, Trump 2028. And he's like, I like that guy.
Yeah.
Who's that? I like that guy. He's always been, teasing that idea. But no, there's 3.5 years more. So, and I saw in the thumbnail, they have a big picture of him on the overpass in Israel where he's at the center and there's 12 people in the picture, like he's in the Last Supper.
Yeah.
And there's been so many things, like they're just trying to mimic him as the new Jesus, basically.
Yeah.
He laid down his life. He's being persecuted. He's sacrificed his life to save us all. And they do see him as a messianic figure, the Christian Zionists, the QAnon people, and the rabbis.
Yeah.
In Israel.
Yeah, it's I mean, even seeing like Saudi Arabia and Egypt sort of like fall in line now that Trump's taken office, and he's like brokering deals with them. Even the Islam side of it is in on the plan, and they want the descendant of Muhammad and then Jesus to come back, and because it's all promising that same thing that Q does. We're going to have freedom. We're going to eliminate the deep state. There's going to be salvation in the golden age world to come. And it's honestly, if it didn't cause so much damage to like getting to the truth and people's like ability to have their own reign over their own lives and free will, it's been going on so long that it seems like it's almost impossible to like root it out. And I really commend you for like the debates that you do and the things that you try to dispel and stuff. Cause I mean, this we're talking thousands of years of, I think we've talked before about Eusebius of Caesarea and like his role in the Roman Empire and like grooming Constantine and stuff. Do you think that was sort of where like the Christian sweep of like the whole West ended up starting? Or
oh yeah, absolutely. Because when Constantine first recognized Christianity as like the state religion, it's estimated that only about 10% of the Roman Empire believed it at the time. And then within a few decades with Theodosius, another emperor, they outlawed paganism, and Christianity became the official religion. And Judaism was still allowed too, by the way, but they outlawed paganism. And the rabbis brag about this, that it was the Christians that spread the Torah and these messianic ideas and the God of Israel around the world. And so yeah, that's definitely the time, undoubtedly. If Constantine, and it was a top-down thing that was imposed in coercion, in force. It wasn't a grassroots thing. It wasn't a miraculous thing.
Yeah.
And Justin Martyr, even in Domitian and Justin Martyr, some of the Roman emperors tried to squash it, but they got, they died in battle or they were overcome. And it's very unfortunate because now this Abrahamic Judeo mind virus has consumed half the world. And now we have these three major religion end times death cults that are like leading us toward like inevitable disaster under the guise of peace too. In the Bible, it says when they say peace and security, that's when the end will come. So it's like even people that try to have peace, they say it's the Antichrist. And now Trump he's been obsessed with being this peace candidate for decades. There's an old magazine of him talking about peace. I think he's been talking about Israel and Palestine peace, but also like Cold War peace as well. And he was on the magazine holding the white dove. And then now there's all this talk. He's probably going to get the Nobel Peace Prize, even though he just bombed Iran. And he just tweeted out that there's a ceasefire. So, they're going to give him the Nobel Peace Prize and he's going to be hailed as the savior of the world. And everybody's going to worship him, as if he was God and a Messiah. Also, I haven't mentioned the Third Temple yet. There's a lot of talk about him being involved. He moving the embassy to Jerusalem was just the precursor to rebuilding the Third Temple there. I really thought with this Iran war thing that the Dome of the Rock could have got blown up. If they're going to do it, that would have been the perfect opportunity, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's not too late. They're, violate one ceasefire, and I ran
Right.
tweets
Yeah, it's
out
not
ahead
over
of
by any
time.
means.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love how they're like saying, "Oh, peace to the world." What time? Great. Remember, Trump tweeted like, "Trust Trump, world peace, congratulations, world," and like Israel's still bombing the hell out of Yemen today,
Yeah.
and they were still bombing right up till the ceasefire thing. It's just insane. But and also, if you notice, so Trump's like the biggest pro-Israel president ever, gets all
Yeah.
the top awards. They call him the Messiah. He's going to bat for Netanyahu and saying he should have all of his corruption charges brought. But then they're holding anti-Semitism hearings in Congress, calling Trump like the biggest anti-Semite and the next Hitler. And I went to the protest a couple weekends ago, the No Kings protest, and
Oh
like
yeah.
every single sign was Trump's Hitler, Trump's a dictator, he's a fascist, they're all Nazis. And it's just, what world are these people living in? He's passing anti-Semitism laws and anti-boycott laws and sending so many billions over to Israel. And he's brags about he winning prime minister in Israel. He'd have 98% support. So it's just like,
Yeah.
no help from the other side.
Yeah.
But they benefit him from both ways, being the Shabbos Noahide, giving Israel everything they want, but then also they benefit from the victimhood. So hyping up Trump as the evil Nazi-like Hitler dictator of America and the leader of the Christian white nationalist anti-Semites. Like that's the narrative that they want, the rise in anti-Semitism before in the pretext and justification for the destruction of the West in America, which they view as Edom. And at some point, there very likely could be some scripted, like Trump turns on Israel, Trump abandons Israel. Even if he's still giving them everything they want, that'll be the narrative.
Yeah.
And that'll be the narrative that they use to like openly abandon us or betray us openly, I say. And then the war hits out and they'll leave us for Russia or China or whatever. And then we get destroyed. They pull our 40 trillion in debt. They pull the rug. And because that is the ultimate goal in Judaism.
Yeah.
It's not to destroy Iran. It's to have Edom fall.
Yeah.
All over Kabbalah, all over the Talmud in Judaism. Rabbis saying this, so many clips of rabbis saying this. The West has to fall for Israel to rise up and have their Moshiach rule the world and have their messianic endgame.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I will say it. I do think it is a little ironic that they happen to like call Trump Hitler, because I feel like if Hitler never existed, would we actually have Israel right now? I mean, I'm sure they would have
possibly,
found somebody else,
there would have just been somebody else. Like even without him, they had the argument that the Christian anti-Semitism in Europe, they could never be at home there. They needed to have their own place. So it's weird. The Christian anti-Semitism in Europe, that was the justification for them having their Israel, and they can't live in Europe and they have to return to their homeland. But also the philo-Semitism in the Christian Europe, where many Christians believe that Jesus won't return unless the Jews return to their homeland.
And
so both ways it helped.
And it's crazy how they frame it to where, hey, you'll get what you want after we get what we want. Promise.
Trust the plan.
Yeah,
trust the plan.
exactly.
When you lose, you win.
Yeah.
Actually. And dude, I just shared a clip today. I go on TikTok and like the algorithm, what it shows me, there was this video of a guy running through Target screaming about the rapture, and it had like 300,000 likes on it.
Jeez.
So these people are ready for the end. So after Israel and Trump bombed Iran, there were so many videos on YouTube and the internet saying, this is it. This is the end times. Everybody's get ready. Jesus is about to return.
Yeah. Yeah, I actually just I posted something today because I mean, like you said, there's this huge overlap with like the QAnon people and the MAGA group, the Maha, even I would say throw a little bit of that in there, and technocrats. I'm sure you saw that interview that Peter Thiel just did, where that New York Times guy was like, "So you could be the Antichrist, right? Why are you a Christian?" But then also, and you know, Peter Thiel sweaty, jittering out and things like that. I almost feel like they might try to use like this increased Christianity or, you know, increased Abrahamic belief to project like a drone Jesus over the sky or something and say, all right, well, the world's over. Everyone's getting raptured. And it's actually like Palantir kill drones, just like shooting people.
I don't even think they need to do that. I mean, I've heard a lot about the Project Bluebeam idea, but the end times doesn't have Jesus floating down in a cloud with the sword and a blood dripping robe on a white horse until after the Antichrist rules in the third temple. So that'll have to happen first. And in the Messiah in Judaism, well, there's two Messiahs, but the main Messiah that they speak of when they say we want Moshiach now is Moshiach ben David, and that is the one that is to rule the world. And it's a political leader. It's like a political king, real person. So that'll be the end game. They don't, once they have that in place, they don't need to do a Project Bluebeam and have people believe in a Jesus. That just isn't going to happen. And the funny thing is like the Christians are so confident in this. They're trusting the plan, but the rabbis are trusting the plan too. But I think they have more reason to, considering it's their plan.
Yeah.
And they're the originators and the authors and the ones with all the secrets and the ones that are like kind of the puppet masters and pulling the strings. So I understand their confidence more, but these rabbis, Christians think that the rabbis like, oh, they're going to see when Jesus returns, like he's going to cast you in the lake of fire and you're all going to repent and you're going to believe.
Yeah.
The rabbis, there's no rabbi anywhere that is concerned at all about Jesus coming back.
Right.
They laugh at the idea and they know it's not going to happen. And they're just laughing at these Christians thinking that they're suckers falling for this fake religion that completely plays into their hands.
Well,
that's what they actually think.
In some of their, I mean, texts, obviously, the Talmud seems to be like the most frequently referenced. It's like Jesus is, boiling in a pot of excrement and semen in hell forever. Mm-hmm. And it's like an inside joke almost to them. And they're like, hey, look at this, look at this absolute joke of a guy that, we use to scapegoat all of our stuff in the Old Testament and get you guys just right back under our thumb. It seems like,
there's another one that people don't know about, actually. I've never seen anybody talk about this. It's in this book, The Jesus the Jews Never Knew. It talks about how the Talmud and the Toldot Yeshu, which is the Jewish secret life of Jesus book, doesn't have a historical Jesus in it. It's not proof of a historical Jesus, but in the Talmud it says, if a man says to thee, I am God, he is a liar. If he says, I am the Son of Man, which Jesus says he's the Son of Man, in the end, people will laugh at him. If he says, I will go up to heaven, like they claim he ascended to heaven, he shall not perform it. I am the Son of Man. If he says, I am the Son of Man, in the end, he will regret it. And you look at if Jesus is the Son of Man, if anybody wants to see the smoking gun on how Jesus is a mythical deception to conquer the nations, look up the Son of Man in Daniel 7, and then look up what it says about the Son of Man in the book of First Enoch 46 and 48. It's all about conquering the world.
Okay.
Having every knee bow, the Gentiles will put their hope in him. It's not even like hidden at all. It's in your face. Like I grew up Christian singing Christmas songs where it says, he rules the world with no and grace. It's just like in your face.
Yeah.
The whole point is to have all the world worship the King of the Jews, the Jewish Messiah. And then these Christians online think that like they're the big opposition and they hate the Jews, when their only problem with Jews today is that they rejected their Messiah that was meant to conquer the whole world.
Yeah.
That's your problem with Jews. You've already lost the game and you fell for the trap.
Yeah. I mean, there's a reason that they like start it young, just like they do with like this trans ideology. It's very easy to get kids while they're young. You get them singing, you give them treats, you make them feel like they're a part of something, and then you have a follower for life.
You make them feel guilty, like he died for you because you're a sinner and you don't want to go to hell. He died for you and he suffered for you, and now you owe him. You have to believe. And it's so stupid. It's like you go to heaven. It's the carrot and the stick approach. Like you go to heaven if you believe in the magical Jewish prophecies. Yeah. If you believe in the blood atonement ritual of a guy that died 2,000 years ago, now you're forgiven for the bad things you do. I never felt for that as a kid. I believed in God. I believed in hell. I believed in demons and Satan and stuff, but I couldn't buy the idea that a guy dying 2,000 years ago, in me believing in it, forgives me for things that I do, and dipping me in the water washes away my sins, or drinking the blood, the cannibalism. I thought, even as the youngest kid, I didn't know anything about Jews. I didn't know any other religions existed. I was just raised from from the cradle in the church. And I thought, this is a weird culty thing going on here.
Yeah.
And I was out of there as fast as I could.
Yeah.
Were you raised Christian too? I assume you were. Almost everybody was. I feel like.
Yeah, my family was Southern Baptist, I think, and they weren't specifically like I had to go to church and all. I actually when my parents would get into fights and shit, I'd like go to church with my friends to get away from my house.
Yeah.
There was a time where I sat down with like the youth pastor and he was like, "Hey, we're going to have you saved by Jesus." And I was like, "Okay." And, he did this whole spiel about how much he loved me and if I opened my heart. And then he was like, "Do you feel that?" And I was like, "I don't feel anything different." I was maybe like 9 years old.
Yeah. No, dude, I remember I'd go to Bible camp, away at Bible camp, and they really try to peer pressure you, and they got the music and the organs and like, come on up. If you're lonely, if you need to be loved, if you've done something bad, if you don't want to go to like so much weird psychological breakdown and peer pressure to get you on board with this. It's so manipulative.
Oh yeah.
It's child abuse too.
Yeah.
If you ask me.
I mean, it's one of those things where it's like, hey, if you don't do this thing, then you'll, be subject to eternal pain and suffering, but he does love you.
Yeah.
And so one thing that I've often heard, from, a couple of researchers and stuff that I do respect is that somewhere along the way, Judaism got corrupted by like the Kabbalistic belief system. And I don't know if I necessarily subscribe to that belief system or like that theory myself. I feel like Judaism and the Kabbalah sort of got their start in like ancient Mesopotamia or something. What do you
Yeah, it's like there's Platonic aspects of it, so that would be like Greek. Maybe they got it from Mesopotamia, but this is the cope you hear all the time from the Christians is that, oh, the true church or the true Bible was corrupted.
Yeah.
No, it is a corruption. They go, no, it's been subverted. It's been subverted by Jews. No, it was started by Jews as a subversion.
Yeah.
As a lie, as a lie to theologically conquer the world. So that's just the cope. They'll say, oh, it's just Protestants. It's just this denomination. It's the Schofield Bible. The Schofield Bible is the regular King James Bible with just a couple interpretations and footnotes.
Yeah.
And they try to blame it all on that because they're trying to still protect. Or they'll say, oh, it's not the Torah Jews. It's just the Talmud that's bad.
Yeah.
The Talmud is just expanding on what's in the Torah.
Yeah.
So Christians can't criticize all of Christianity because it's their religion. They can't criticize the Torah, which is the root of Kabbalah and Torah, Talmud and Judaism today. So, yeah, we hear that all the time. That is one of the top copes. The copes are so bad too, and this is why we've had decades, if not hundreds of years of the Christians leading the opposition to Zionism and Judaism.
Yeah.
And they come up with the most indefensible positions that are so easily debunked. Like they'll say Jesus wasn't Jewish, or the Jews aren't the real Jews. They're Khazarians, or they're secretly Edom and they claim we're Edom, and all of these like mental gymnastics just to like expose what it is at face value. Like there's so much material there to refute, and they just want to come up with all these other kosher conspiracies. They'll say, instead of just acknowledging that the Jews believe in the God of the Bible, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, the God of Zion and Yahweh, who they actually believe in and think they're chosen by, they'll say, no, that's a lie. They really secretly worship Satan. No, they don't.
Yeah.
Satan is the controlled opposition to God. He's the adversary that God created. He allows to operate. He provides a divine purpose of testing humans, testing the Jews, tempting them to sin, accusing them of sins. He works for God. They don't worship Satan. They worship God. And the only reason Christians claim that they worship Satan is because otherwise they'd have to admit that Christians worship the same God as the Jews. And then it was their God. So there's no denying Christians worship the Jewish God, and they're all over the internet trying to cope and make up lies that that's not true, but it very obviously is. And Paul explicitly says it in the New Testament. He says, is it the God of the Jews only? No, it's the God of the Gentiles too. The only people waiting around for a Messiah and reading the Torah and thinking that they're chosen and circumcising and in keeping kosher were known as the Jews, the Iudeans, the Judeans. And that's what Jesus was. That's what all the first Christians were. It is a Jewish messianic apocalyptic religion for the Gentiles.
Absolutely.
Period.
Hey, really quick, I guess I forgot to renew my Zoom, so I'm gonna go
Uh-oh.
BRB for just a second and send you another
Don't we
link.
have an hour or does it end at 45 minutes?
I think. Oh fuck. All right, give me 1 second, everybody. All right, I'm back. I just sent the link over. This is entirely my fault. You can tell that we're not a multi-million dollar intelligence operations because my stream is always fucking up. There he is.
Ooh.
Sorry about that, man.
No worries.
I saw the countdown come up and I was like, oh shit, I forgot to pay that. So I was like trying to update my card details while I was listening.
Is it 45 minutes? That's what it gives you for free? Is 45?
Yeah, I think they cut it down specifically for like hour-long podcasts and stuff. But yeah, much to your point, like what you were saying about the Satan being controlled opposition, I just see that as like the deep state Democrats, you know, and drinking the blood of the kids and Hillary Clinton, George Soros.
Well, exactly. Yeah, that's thank you for bringing that up. That's what you see like in mainstream Christian dominated like conspiracy culture. The bad guy is always the Satanists, the Luciferians. They're drinking the baby blood. They're doing rituals, you know, these satanic rituals. They have black magic powers. All of that is like debilitating, but also all it does is like scare people and herd people towards the answer. They scare you. Problem, reaction, solution, like David Icke always used to say.
Oh, yeah.
So the problem is Satan, and the solution is the God of the Jews, the Messiah of Israel.
Yeah.
And that's all it does is scare people towards that. And I even see, you know, Ian Carroll even though he's not a Christian, he says this. He goes, like when they had the Olympics thing, they're like, oh, I don't want to believe that there's a satanic cult that runs the world and that hates Jesus, but it really seems like it. I'm going to go buy a Bible.
Yeah.
Like, stop grifting off these Christians, Ian.
Yeah.
You know, it's Jewish mythology and nonsense. You know, a virgin didn't raise from the dead and walk on water and do all this made up stuff.
Yeah, it's honestly been hilarious to see, just speaking on Ian Carroll just for a second, because I know you kind of call out his bullshit like I do, but just looking back in retrospect from like the last year of things that he's talked about, wrong about JFK or RFK, wrong about Trump, wrong about JD Vance, didn't know who Peter Thiel was, thinks that they're gonna coup Israel.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, this guy's like the Jim Cramer of truthers.
Yeah.
It's insane. Now, as far as everything goes, like I that's why I always like try to avoid using like Satan or God. I just say Kabbalists, because they're all just practicing the same like mysticism, whether you want to say it's
or Judaists. You can go
Yeah.
even further and just say Judaists, followers of Judaism.
Now, I know that like a lot of the paradigm of control is largely like institutional religions and their ability to like control the masses, facilitate donations, run governments. But do you think that it is at all possible to like maybe just hold like a personal Christian belief and not push your stuff on other people, or like just by default all Christians do have to be Zionists?
Well, in the sense that if you believe in Jesus, you have to believe in the Old Testament. There is no Jesus without the Old Testament and the prophecies, because he's the prophet. He's the fake fulfillment of the prophecies of the Old Testament. So, and he's the Son of God. That's the Son of the God of Zion. So if you're worshiping the Son of the God of Zion and you say you're anti-Zionist, like what you mean is you're anti-modern day state of Israel, but you still worship the God of Zion.
Yeah.
So that's why, I still consider you a Zionist. I think that's the wrong way to frame it.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I'm anti-Zionist. Like, I'm a based Christian. No, you still worship the God of Zion.
Yeah.
And you still believe that, maybe you don't think the Jews are chosen anymore. You think you're the true Israel and you have the covenant now because you believe in Jesus. But you're also affirming and acknowledging that they ever were chosen.
Yeah.
And there's no greater psyop in the world than a small group of people inventing this God that chooses them and then convincing half the world that they were really chosen.
Yeah.
Like convincing all of the world, the Roman Empire, all of your enemies that you were chosen by God. Like that's a huge psyop.
Yeah. And it's always funny too, because like, I mean, obviously you see like the most outspoken anti-Semites, Stu Peters, Nick Fuentes, who like Lucas Gage, Myron Gaines, all these people that will just immediately prop up a rabbi, right? They've referenced that Jesus is specifically a rabbi in the book that these guys all supposedly follow.
Yep.
The irony there, I don't know if it's lost on them or it's like a genuine disingenuousness. It's
like a weird cognitive dissonance that they can't put it together.
Yeah,
it's like they'll also say, these like Christians online, they'll be like, oh, the Jews are liars and they're deceivers and they always set up controlled opposition, and then it doesn't dawn on them that they're the ultimate form of that controlled opposition and they're the ones that have fallen for the biggest deception.
Yeah.
The whole point of the Messiah was to conquer the nations, which is the Goyim, and then now you bend your knee to that Messiah.
Yeah.
And they can't put it together. And then they call us Jews if we say, no, it's a trap. You're worshiping the Jewish God. They go, no, you're Rabbi Greenberg.
Yeah.
They go, there's nothing more Jewish than rejecting Jesus. Like, no, there's nothing more Jewish than believing in a Moshiach and believing that the Jews were ever chosen and believing in the Hebrew Torah.
Yeah, because I mean, at the end of the day, just the very acknowledgement of Jesus acknowledges the exact same God that the Jews believe in. And
they go, no, they hate Jesus. This is such a weird, like, reverse psychology. Because the Jews hate Jesus, you should follow him. Like, okay, they know that. They know that's how the human psyche works. So all they got to do is reject him, and then all the Goyim bow down and say, oh, we worship you now. Right? It's like as simple as that.
Yeah.
Light switch brain. And they go, oh, the Jews hate Jesus. They hate him. They killed him. It was all Jews that were the first believers in Jesus.
Yeah.
They were arguing in the Bible on if Gentiles had to convert to Judaism and get circumcised before they could even be Christians. That's how Jewish it was.
Yeah.
Peter, the supposed first pope and Jesus's right-hand man, got scolded by Paul because he wouldn't sit at a table and eat with Gentiles. That's how supremacist and Torah observant he was.
That's insane.
Jesus said, no, the gifts are for, the blessings are for God's chosen people, and the Gentiles are like the dogs getting the scraps at the table. Like that's the sloppy seconds that Christians want. You're following their rejected Messiah. But to say that like the Jews hate Jesus when it was all Jews that were the first followers and spreaders of Jesus, I don't know, it just goes right over their head. They don't get it.
Yeah, it's insane to see the, like you said, the cognitive dissonance. And so I have a weird question. Do you think that Jesus was just like this regular guy that this mythos got like dumped on, or that he literally, like, there was no guy, mystic or not, that ever existed? Like, is it a complete
I'm a
fabrication?
mythicist.
Okay.
Complete fabrication, whole cloth fabrication. There was it's possible there could have been, I'm saying like hypothetically, it's possible there could have been a original person that like it was embellishment and exaggerations and legends grew around him.
Yeah.
But the further back you go in the New Testament, the more celestial and mythological the Jesus is. It's not until like Paul wrote like 7 letters, supposedly half of the New Testament, and he never even knew Jesus. And he says explicitly, how did he learn about Jesus? Was not from any man, not from any legends or oral teachings. He learned it from reading scripture, reading the Old Testament, and from revelations, meaning he was a mystical Jew. They believed in mystical ascension-like experiences. I don't know if they're starving themselves and tripping out, if they're having dreams at night. They probably didn't know what dreams were. They didn't know how brains work. So dreams at night, you're reading scriptures all day, searching for hidden mysteries from God about the Messiah. They're seeing these different verses speaking about messianic things, dreaming about it at night. And like, how often do people today say they know Jesus? Christians today go, I walk with Jesus. I've met Jesus. I had a vision of Jesus. Jesus came to me in a dream. So if people are doing that today, they'll say, I'll die for Jesus. That's how much they know he's real. They never met a historical figure. You'll do that today. That's what they were doing in the first century. Okay. So they were, and Paul even says, he describes what a revelation of Jesus is like. He says he was caught up into the third heaven of paradise where he learned the mysteries. So this is describing a ascension Kabbalistic experience of a heavenly ascension mystical dream. Basically, it's the same thing you see in Enoch and Ezekiel's chariot, later on in Kabbalah. That's where they in the ascension of Isaiah. Anybody that doubts this, the Christians will say, oh, well, all the scholars agree, and even Bart Ehrman, the atheists, agree. Don't listen to that fallacious argument. Read Richard Carrier's book on the historicity of Jesus. Read Nailed by David Fitzgerald. Read Bart Ehrman's book. Actually, when you dig into the debate on the historical Jesus, it is very obvious that they claim like, oh, you can't even dispute it, or you're a flat earth kook in a conspiracy. They're lying. They're lying. The evidence for historical Jesus is poor, piss poor, awful.
And so the text that serves as like what is supposed to be the foundational evidence then posits the idea of Jesus before the supposed virgin birth. That doesn't.
Oh yeah,
that's crazy.
Paul's letters never mention a virgin birth or Mary or Judas or Pilate, and Paul never places Jesus unambiguously in any earthly context. And so you understand, this is how Jesus was invented from ancient Jews that are desperate for their prophecies to be fulfilled. They're desperate for a Messiah. They're desperate to be liberated from Rome and the Greeks. So they're searching the scriptures for God's hidden secrets. So Jesus is completely built on prophecies.
Okay.
Though the only way they knew about Jesus was reading him out of scripture. They thought he was secretly being spoken of in the scriptures. Okay. So it's fake prophecy fulfillment. Every single aspect of Jesus is either an older pagan story or a rewritten story from the Old Testament or some cherry-picked, pulled out of context verse from the Old Testament.
Okay. Yeah. See, I thought obviously it's impossible to know for sure.
Mm-hmm.
But I thought maybe it was like a 2,000-year-old like Rabbi Schneerson situation where it's like they
Right.
deified this just like regular fucking guy who went around like preaching the gospel or whatever. But
Yeah.
um,
Well, here's the thing. Important note on that.
mhm.
Like that's what like Bart Ehrman and like a lot of the apologists try to say is that ancient Jews had some earthly preacher and then he was crucified and like we thought he was the Messiah, so they were coping and then they looked to the scriptures to try to find proof that the Messiah was supposed to die and then all of that he fulfilled all these prophecies, right? But we already know that Jews were searching the scriptures and doing this type of thing called Pesher and Midrash, writing new stories and retelling and making up mystical myths from the scriptures. So you don't need an earthly Jesus to do that. And well, I mean, just ask anybody, some of the Christians in the chat that are triggered right now, I can see. What's more likely that some magical superhero 2,000 years ago fulfilled hundreds of these prophecies that many of them aren't even actual prophecies? They're completely out of context and not messianic prophecies at all. Or just some ancient Jews wrote a mythical story fulfilling all of these prophecies.
Yeah.
One requires magic and chosen people, and there's no proof of it outside the Bible at all. There's no eyewitness contemporary documentation or historians that mention Jesus or any of the miracles or anything like that. So did a magical superhero fulfill all of these prophecies and violate all these laws of natures and do all these miracles? Or the more simple explanation, some ancient Jews knew all the prophecies and wrote a story about a Messiah that fulfills all of these scriptures.
Yeah. And so it becomes a prophecy that they write to complete itself down the line, once they've bankrolled basically everything in the world. Okay, so I've seen like obviously we've talked about like the overlap with like technocracy and Israel, the Trump administration, and like Christian nationalism, and I'm seeing this like converging point. And one theory that I've had is that the supposed third temple is going to be this like technocratic control system. And I think that's like their golden ages once they have everyone on blockchain and everyone's got like Palantir biometric social credit and shit. Do you see sort of like the same thing, or do you think it like the third temple is like a physical structure that's going to go up in Jerusalem after they do?
I do think it's a physical structure.
Yeah.
And the Messiah is a real life political person.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, we already know it's the mark of the beast. It's total technocratic control, religious and technological control. In order for a very small people to control the whole world, they can do it with religion, and then they also have to do it with technology.
Yeah.
So that's why Israel and Netanyahu has been so obsessed with tech dominance and cyber stuff going on in Israel. And even going back in the 1700s, one of the top Kabbalists in all of Judaism, Gaon of Vilna, the genius of Vilna, talked about these Kabbalistic verses of technology and Kabbalah ushering in the Messianic age. And the Christians are already prepared for this. Mark of the beast and microchips and this type of thing, you cannot buy or sell. So complete control over the world and the financial system. Like they think they want that in a way. They're against it. They're scared of it. They go, we're not going to take the mark. Well, I'd rather die for Jesus. But that has to happen. It must happen, they believe. And that's what they're working toward. Seems inevitable. And so that's definitely part of it.
Yeah. I mean, that is kind of the catch-22 is, if they all want to go, have Jesus return and get raptured up to heaven or whatever, that they have to just stand by and let the brain chips happen and the nanobots happen and the Palantir happen. Otherwise Jesus won't come back. So it almost, instills within them like hey, you should be rooting for us. And I'm just now, that's kind of clicking for me a little bit. And that makes sense now as to why, you have Peter Thiel and Elon Musk, I think, has even, played around with the idea of of that before. Joe
Right.
Rogan is going
They're
to,
ushering in demons. That's what that. And think about this too. Remember the term I mentioned, hyperstition?
yeah,
I think you might know the guy, Mad Crab. I
yeah,
heard it
yeah,
from
yeah.
one of his videos.
Okay.
There's this guy that's involved with Curtis Yarvin and these technocracy guys. He's the one that had the term hyperstition, and that's the context that he came up with it for. It fits religious prophecy perfectly, but he was talking about having this sci-fi dystopian Palantir technocracy age. And if you convince people that something is inevitable, like the mark of the beast coming, then it will happen and manifest in real life. And that probably is why Peter Thiel keeps talking about Antichrist stuff,
Yeah.
is because while he's putting in the Antichrist system.
Yeah. Now, do you think he sort of sees himself as that antichrist like kind of figure?
I don't know.
Like
I don't think he's really a Christian. Like he claims to be Christian or says he grew up Christian, right? But I mean,
yeah,
he's
yeah,
gay, so how really Christian can you be?
yeah, absolutely.
And so yeah, I don't know. I don't think he really believes in the religion, so he wouldn't think of him as that type of figure. But he sure brings up the Antichrist stuff a lot. That could be maybe a Nietzschean thing. Also,
Yeah,
Nietzsche has a book called Antichrist. That might be why he's referencing it. But he knows what he's doing.
yeah. Yeah, and I've also noticed too that it seems like a lot of the technocrats they're inspired by a like Hegelian idealism, you know, that thesis and antithesis synthesis, and you know Hegel and all of those people were very heavily influenced by like Sabbatai Zevi and the Kabbalistic influences that he had with like Nathan of Gaza and stuff, and it just seems like we're just living through the same kind of shit with newer technology, different names, but that this seems to be like everything's lining up that this is going to be the one, you know, because we've had like, oh, the Messiah's here, there's been probably 1,000 different people that have claimed to be the Messiah.
Well, in Judaism, they believe in reincarnation, and they believe that in every generation there is the reincarnation of the messiahs. So
Okay.
and really that works, that it has this like overarching like roles to play. So in every generation they can find somebody, or people can willingly try to like fill these roles on their own. It's like an archetype that they can play into. And I think that's kind of the mechanism at play here. So yeah, in every generation, there's always people saying that's the Antichrist, or this guy thinks he's the Messiah, the Moshiach syndrome, right?
Yeah.
So it does have some roots in their belief in reincarnation, and there being these archetypes in every generation.
Okay. Okay. That awfully convenient, isn't it?
It works. It works for them.
Awesome. Well, I know you've got some stuff going on. So I'll ask you one more, I guess, like 2-part question, and then let you plug your stuff and then let you get out of here and hit the gym. So if we are truly like on this, you know, Moshiach prophecy track, where they're like trying to hit all the beats, where exactly are we on the timeline as far as like if you had to place us somewhere between, you know, the apocalypse starts with the Israel, Iran, and all the like prophecies beforehand, and the end times?
Well, I've seen rabbis say that Gog and Magog, because they believe in 3 wars of Gog and Magog. So, and then they compare that to World War I, World War II, and then World War III, and they believe that it started on 9/11.
Okay.
That's when the war on terror started in, you know, Iraq and Libya and Syria and some of these other countries, and now we're at Iran. But you know, if they're following the script, I think there's going to be a 3.5 year, because there's supposed to be a 7-year covenant that falls apart after 3.5 years. So if right now Trump, like they're saying, does some 2-state solution deal with the West Bank, because Abbas and the PLO is saying get rid of Hamas now, he's saying that. And there's been foreshadowing that Trump's going to make a deal with them, even though it won't materialize. It's going to fall through at some point. But they're going to need that West Bank deal to make up for what's happened in Gaza, the takeover in Gaza, and to get the other Arab countries like Saudi Arabia to join the Abraham Accords. And then once they get back and do more Abraham Accords, all of the praise and all of the peace of the world is going to go to Donald Trump. And then, there'll be a false flag or an attack or an assassination or something, and then it'll fall apart. And then hopefully it doesn't happen, but the big war against Iran, Russia, and China versus the West, and possible nuclear war. And then after the dust settles, their messianic age, and they think that they're going to survive. They're in the middle of it. They're instigating it. Their only place they're going to be safe is Jerusalem and Israel, because they have the protection of God that's going to intervene and show everybody that God is with them. And then they'll have their messianic age with their Noahide servants. And even if they don't do this right now, as long as these beliefs persist, it could happen in another 200 years. It could happen in another 500 years, because this threat is not going to go away as long as people still believe in these prophecies.
Yeah.
Because they have a way of manifesting themselves through the belief. People try to hasten them. They don't stop it when it's happening.
Yep.
Like we see this all the time. Like this big e-girl online, Christian. She's the co-host with the Quartering. I forget her name, but she was like, "I wasn't worried at all about World War III because I've read my Bible and I trust the plan." Like, this is the mindset that you see all the time. It must happen, and if it does, and war breaks out in World War III, well, that's God's plan, and I'm ready for it, and Jesus is going to return. So as long as people have that mindset, the threat is never going to go away. It can always end up happening.
Yeah, that was Melanie Mack, I think was her name.
Melanie Mack.
Yeah. Awesome. That's so people are just ready to die, it seems like, and this belief system is their justification. I'm gonna be honest, I'm not ready to die. There's some shit I still want to do, and I don't think anybody else should be able to have that say for me. That seems to violate the whole free will thing. If I
would it be
nice
if we had a world that didn't have like half the planet believing these prophecies, where like it's God's plan that all chaos and wars have to break out? Like, it'd be nice if we had a philosophy where it was like, no, we're going to excel, we're going to go to the stars, and we're going to have real peace. In the Bible, having peace is the sign that you're the Antichrist, and like the wars are about to start. So it's just like, such garbage.
And then we have peace through strength and Palantir total information awareness. Yeah. Awesome. Well, Adam, I'm gonna let you go, man. I appreciate you giving me your time. I'd love to have you back on for a repeat episode to really kind of drill into some of these details and stuff. But tell everyone where I'll
come back on once you come back on my show again soon. We'll do another one soon.
You got it, brother.
All right. You can find me nomorenews.org to find all my links. I stream on Odysee, Rumble. I'm on Twitter and Telegram. I got the fan YouTube channel. If you're a YouTube only person, go to Adam Green fan page to find that, and all the links at nomorenews.org. Appreciate you for having me on. Good, important talk.
Absolutely, man. And thank you again for fighting the good fight, and we'll see you next time.
You too. Big fan of your work. Keep it up.
Likewise. Thanks, man.
All right. Take care.